Most athletes would have panicked. Most would have given some bland, PR-approved non-answer about staying focused on their sport. Most would have deflected, dodged, and changed the subject as quickly as humanly possible. But Coco Gauff isn't most athletes. When a reporter hit her with a loaded political question about President Trump and the state of America at her Australian Open press conference, she didn't run from it. She didn't hide behind corporate speak or pretend she had no opinion. She answered it honestly, powerfully, and in a way that has the entire sports world debating whether athletes should even be put in these positions in the first place. The 21-year-old just demolished her opponent in straight sets, playing some of the best tennis of her career, and walked into what should have been a routine post-match press conference. Instead, she got hit with a political grenade disguised as a question, and her response, raw, exhausted, but unflinchingly honest, has ignited a firestorm across social media, sports commentary, and political circles. Some are calling her brave. Others are telling her to shut up and play tennis. And Gauff herself? She admitted something that most public figures would never say out loud. She's tired. Fatigued from constantly being expected to speak for entire communities while also trying to be one of the best tennis players on the planet. This is the story of what happens when sports and politics collide, when a young black woman refuses to stay silent, and when the exhaustion of advocacy becomes as real as the importance of the message itself. Let's break down exactly what happened, what she said, why it matters, and what it reveals about the impossible position we put young athletes in when we demand they be both entertainers and activists simultaneously. Here's the setup. Coco Gauff just finished absolutely dominating Olga Danilovich in the second round of the Australian Open. The scoreline was 6-2, 6-2 in about an hour and 17 minutes. Clean, efficient, professional. Exactly what you'd expect from the third seed in a match she was heavily favored to win. Gauff's serve was clicking. Her movement was sharp. Her return game was breaking down Danilovich's resistance systematically. She won 75% of her second serve return points, broke serve multiple times, and looked every bit like a player capable of winning this tournament. She walked into the press conference probably expecting the standard questions. How did you feel about your performance today? What's working well with your game? How do you approach the next round? Maybe something about her opponent or the conditions or her fitness. The usual tennis talk that fills these mandatory media sessions. Instead, the very first question out of a reporter's mouth was this. You're usually pretty outspoken about political issues, and I'm curious how you feel about the state of the U.S. 1 year into the second Trump administration. Let me emphasize this again because it's genuinely wild. The first question, not after they'd eased her into the press conference with some softball tennis questions, not buried somewhere in the middle after she'd gotten comfortable. The literal opening question was asking her to comment on American politics on an international stage immediately after playing a professional tennis match. That's a hell of a way to start a press conference. Now, 99% of athletes in that position would have immediately gone into damage control mode. They'd mumble something about respecting all viewpoints, not wanting to get political, staying focused on their sport, trying to unite people rather than divide them. The standard corporate non-answer that technically responds to the question, while saying absolutely nothing of substance. It's the safe play. It protects sponsorships. It avoids controversy. It keeps everyone happy and nobody upset. But Coco Gauff didn't do that. She actually answered the question, and she didn't sugarcoat her response or hide behind vague platitudes. She started by acknowledging her previous statements. I think I've already stated my opinions in the past on how I feel about it. Which is absolutely true. Gauff has never been shy about her political views or her commitment to social justice causes. She's spoken publicly about racial inequality, gun violence, women's rights, and numerous other issues that many athletes avoid like they're radioactive. She famously spoke at a Black Lives Matter rally in her hometown when she was just 16 years old, delivering a speech that went viral and established her as someone willing to use her platform for more than just tennis. So this question didn't come completely out of nowhere. She has positioned herself, deliberately or not, as an athlete who's willing to engage with political and social issues. That comes with territory, including being asked about those issues at tennis press conferences when maybe all you want to talk about is your backhand. But then Goff said something that cuts through all the noise and gets to the heart of what it's actually like to be a young athlete, expected to constantly comment on political issues. She said, I feel a bit fatigued talking about it just because of the fact that it is hard. Fatigued. That single word choice is remarkably honest and revealing. She's not saying the issues don't matter. She's not saying she doesn't care. She's saying that the constant expectation to speak on these topics, to represent entire communities, to have the perfect response to every political development is genuinely exhausting. Think about what that means. Coco Gauff is 21 years old. She's barely old enough to legally drink in the United States. Most people her age are still figuring out their basic political beliefs, still developing their worldviews, still making mistakes and learning from them in relative privacy. But Goff has to articulate her positions on complex political issues in front of international media, knowing that every word will be analyzed, criticized, weaponized, and turned into headlines. That's an enormous amount of pressure for someone who's still technically in the early stages of adulthood. She continued with something equally important. I hope forward that we can have a lot more peace in our country and more kindness in the way we speak to each other about different topics and things like that. On the surface, that sounds diplomatic and safe, the kind of unity message that politicians love to deploy. But then she got more specific, and this is where her answer became genuinely powerful and pointed. I think being a black woman in this country and having to experience things even online and seeing your marginalized communities being affected and knowing that I can only really donate and speak out, and I try my best to do that. That right there is the core of her response. She's not talking in vague generalities about everyone coming together. She's specifically addressing her experience as a black woman in America and the challenges that marginalized communities are facing right now. That's not a neutral statement. That's a direct observation about the current political climate and who bears the heaviest burden of it. The phrase, even online, is particularly telling because it acknowledges the constant harassment and abuse that black athletes, especially black women athletes, face on social media platforms. It's not just abstract political disagreement. It's personal attacks, racist comments, death threats, and constant toxicity that comes with daring to have opinions while being black and female in public spaces. She wrapped up her answer by saying, I just hope that as time continues, that we can reach a state where we're not currently in and we keep moving forward. Then she referenced a Martin Luther King Jr. video she had posted the previous day, explaining that it was about moving forward even when things aren't as calm as she'd like them to be. That reference is significant because it deliberately positions her within the tradition of the civil rights movement and ongoing struggles for racial justice. She's not being subtle about her values or what historical lineage she sees herself as part of. What makes this response so remarkable is its honesty about the emotional toll this takes. She's admitting vulnerability while also standing firm on her principles. She's saying, yes, this is hard and exhausting, and also, yes, it's important enough that I'm going to keep doing it anyway. That combination of acknowledgement and commitment is rare in public figures, especially young ones who are still building their brands and careers. The fact that she addressed this political question before anyone even asked about her tennis performance is almost surreal. The match against Danilovic was genuinely dominant. Goff is now 14-0 in second-round matches at Grand Slams since 2022, which is an absolutely ridiculous statistic that demonstrates her consistency at the highest level. She's through to the third round, where she'll face fellow American Haley Baptiste. Her serve is working better than it has in months. Her movement is exceptional. She's playing with confidence and precision. All of that should have been the story coming out of that press conference, but instead the headlines are all about Trump and politics and whether athletes should comment on these issues because that's what happens when you're Coco Gauff. Your athletic excellence becomes almost secondary to your role as a cultural figure and voice for social change. That's a double-edged sword that creates both opportunity and burden. The reactions online have been exactly as predictable and polarized as you'd expect. Some people are praising Goff for her courage and authenticity, for being willing to use her platform for something beyond self-promotion, for speaking truth even when it's uncomfortable. They see her as a role model for young people who want athletes to stand for something meaningful. They appreciate that she's not trying to appeal to everyone or avoid controversy to protect her brand value. On the flip side, you've got the inevitable chorus of people saying she should shut up and play tennis, that she's too young to understand politics, that athletes shouldn't make political statements, that she's being divisive or disrespectful, all the standard criticisms that get weaponized against athletes, especially black women athletes, when they dare to have opinions about anything other than their sport. The shut up and dribble mentality that treats athletes as entertainers who should be grateful for their platform, but never actually use it for anything substantive. What these critics often miss is that Gauff isn't forcing politics into tennis. She's responding to questions that reporters are asking her. She didn't walk into that press conference planning to give a political speech. A journalist specifically asked her about the Trump administration, and she gave an honest answer. The alternative would have been to lie, to pretend she has no opinions, to perform a version of herself that isn't authentic. And for what? To make people more comfortable? To avoid upsetting fans who disagree with her politically? Here's the reality that makes the situation so complicated. Gauff has consistently used her platform to advocate for causes she believes in. That decision has consequences, including being asked political questions at tennis tournaments. She could choose to stop commenting on social issues, to focus exclusively on tennis, to keep her opinions private. Many athletes make that choice and nobody blames them for it. Not everyone needs to be an activist. Not everyone is comfortable in that role. But Gauff has made a different choice. She's decided that her platform comes with responsibility, that staying silent on issues that affect her community would be a form of complicity, that using her voice matters even when it's uncomfortable or costly. That's a legitimate choice that deserves respect even from people who disagree with her specific positions. The mention of her HBCU donations is also crucial context that often gets overlooked in these political debates. After the Trump question, a reporter asked about her recent $150,000 donation to the United Negro College Fund, her second consecutive year, making a massive contribution through the Coco Gauff Scholarship Program. This isn't performative activism or virtue signaling. She's putting substantial money behind the causes she cares about. Gauff explained that both of her grandmothers attended HBCUs along with other family members. She said if she hadn't played tennis, she would have loved to attend an HBCU herself. So these donations aren't random, charitable gestures chosen by a PR team. They're deeply personal commitments to institutions that have historically served Black communities and continue doing vital work. She specifically noted that HBCU tennis programs often don't get the funding they need, which is why she's directing her support there. The scholarship program has already helped 10 students pursue their education. That's 10 young people whose lives have been materially changed because Coco Gauff decided to back up her words with tangible action. That's the kind of specific, targeted philanthropy that actually makes a difference rather than just generating positive headlines. When Gauff says she tries to donate and speak out, she's not exaggerating. She's genuinely putting her money where her mouth is in ways that most athletes, especially ones so young, simply don't. And that context matters when evaluating her political statements. She's not just talking, she's doing the work. The exhaustion she expressed is something we should take seriously rather than dismiss. Being a voice for social change while also competing at the highest level of professional tennis is an enormous burden. Every match carries the weight of representation. Every press conference becomes an opportunity for political questions. Every social media post gets scrutinized for its messaging. Every loss gets interpreted through the lens of distraction or divided focus. Compare Gauff's approach to how most tennis players handle political questions. They deflect with surgical precision. They give carefully crafted non-answers that technically respond without saying anything. They invoke the "I'm just here to play tennis" defense. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that approach if it's genuine. Not every athlete needs to be politically engaged. The problem is when athletes are criticized for being political while simultaneously being asked political questions and praised for their bravery when they give safe, meaningless answers. Gauff has rejected that playbook entirely. She answers honestly even when honesty is complicated. She acknowledges difficulty even when acknowledgement makes her seem less superhuman. She admits exhaustion even when admission might be perceived as weakness. That authenticity is rare and valuable in an era of carefully managed public personas. What's particularly interesting is the timing of this question, 1 year into Trump's second term. The reporter specifically framed it that way, clearly looking for a reaction to the current political climate. And Gauff gave them one, just not in the inflammatory or clickbait way they might have hoped. She was measured, thoughtful, and honest without being unnecessarily provocative. She expressed hope for improvement while being clear about her concerns. That's actually a remarkably mature response for someone her age dealing with that kind of loaded question. The Martin Luther King Jr. reference adds another layer of meaning. By invoking MLK and the concept of moving forward, even when circumstances aren't ideal, Gauff is placing herself within a specific historical and political tradition. She's aligning herself with the civil rights movement and ongoing struggles for racial justice. That's a deliberate choice that signals her values and her understanding of her role as a black athlete with a platform. Moving forward, it'll be fascinating to see if other young athletes follow Gauff's lead in being more open about their political views, or if they continue playing it safe. Tennis specifically has a complicated history with athlete activism. Billie Jean King fought for gender equality and LGBTQ rights. Martina Navratilova spoke out on numerous political issues throughout her career. Arthur Ashe used his platform to address racial injustice and apartheid. But for every politically engaged tennis player, there are dozens who avoid these topics entirely, preferring to keep their focus narrowly on their sport. Gauff seems to be positioning herself in that tradition of tennis players who aren't afraid to speak out, who understand that their platform comes with responsibility, who believe that silence in the face of injustice is itself a political choice. Whether the tennis establishment and fan base are ready for that kind of athlete activism in 2026 remains to be seen. The Australian Open continues, and Gauff is very much in contention for the title. Her tennis has been excellent. Her draw is manageable. She has the game to win this tournament. But this press conference has ensured that her run will be about more than just her athletic performance. Whether she wants it or not, she's become a symbol of athlete activism and the ongoing debate about whether sports and politics should mix. So there you have it. Coco Gauff didn't dodge the political question. She admitted she's exhausted from constantly being expected to speak on these issues. But she made her position clear anyway, grounded in her experience as a black woman in America, supported by tangible action through her scholarship program, and rooted in a tradition of athletes who believed their platforms demanded more than just athletic excellence. Should athletes be asked political questions at press conferences? Should they be expected to have informed opinions on complex issues while they're trying to focus on their sport? Should young black women bear a disproportionate burden of representation and advocacy? These are complicated questions without easy answers. But Coco Gauff's response shows what it looks like when someone navigates that impossible terrain with honesty, grace, and genuine commitment to something bigger than themselves. If you found this breakdown valuable and want to keep up with all the drama, controversy, and incredible tennis from the Australian Open and beyond, smash that like and subscribe button. Drop a comment and tell me, do you think athletes should answer political questions at press conferences, or should they be allowed to just focus on their sport? Let's talk about it.